Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you're familiar with animal migrations, if you watch National Geographic on television, you'll see that birds migrate thousands of miles in order to stay within the warm weather and to find food. You'll also see that there are tremendous migrations in Africa of animals, gazelle, zebras, buffalo. They all migrate. They all go from one place to another, and they're in constant movement, searching for food, searching for better weather, searching for water. Man also roams the world. Man goes from one place to another, searching and searching. Different men go on different kinds of searches. Some go to jungles, some go to caves, some go to deserts, some go to cities, some go to monasteries, some go to rural areas. They're constantly on the move. What is it that man is looking for? Well, the majority of men are in search of fame, wealth, and titles. So they leave their homes to go to universities and colleges in order to be able to get degrees so they can go out in the world and make their fortunes. So they can go out in the world and make their fame, make their fortune. What is the reason that we chase these things? Why do we chase fame and fortune and titles? What is it that we're looking for? What is it that we want? What is it that we need? What is it that these things do for us? Do we know, or do we just chase? Have we been told it's good to become wealthy, so we become wealthy thinking, well, there's some positive benefit to it, or it's good to become famous because we've been told there's some positive benefit to it, or we've been told it's good to have titles because there's some positive benefit to it. What is it that we're trying to do? Are we trying to gain power? Are we trying to gain dominion over other people? Are we trying to gain control? What is it that we're chasing? In truth, what is it that we need? And in truth, we all know what it is that we need. We need to go on a path that takes us towards our Creator. And we have to be able to pay attention to this path. And we have to give care as to where we're heading on this path. We have to have an understanding of what it is we're seeking, what it is we're trying to learn, what it is that we need, what it is that we search for. We have to conceptualize this somehow. We have to have some idea of what we're doing. If we don't have an idea of what we're doing, then we are subject to Maya and torpor. And we're subject to being bewitched, confused, and entrapped by Maya and torpor and our own karma. And these powers within the earth will just pull us along, and we can go along for years and years, not really having any real concept of what it is we're trying to accomplish, but being lost in the chase. And that's why we have to be constantly aware of what it is that we're doing and what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And we must know what it is that we need in order to take us in the appropriate direction. We must know what we need that will take us out of Maya, out of illusion, out of karma, and out of the various torpors that are looking to entrap us in this world. And what that weapon is that is given to us by Allah to escape all of these things is wisdom, faith, certitude, and determination. And wisdom. Wisdom is being able to see with a perspective that's different than one who is entrapped within the world. Wisdom is being able to see with a perspective that's outside of illusion. Wisdom is able to see with a perspective that isn't entranced by the world, that isn't entranced by titles and wealth and fame and women, that isn't entranced by the form within the world, that isn't caught up in the torpor of the world. Now, to maintain this wisdom, to maintain being able to separate us from that which is trying to entrap us, takes being clear at all times. It takes having a certain purity within us. And to accomplish this purity, we have to learn to act in a certain way to maintain it. We have to learn to become modest. We have to be modest in our dress and modest in our actions. We have to learn to have a certain decorum about ourselves. We have to learn to act in a certain way that's always mild and without exaggeration and without flare-ups. We have to learn how to control our desires and control our mind. Desire is a constant that is a thirst that is unquenchable. No matter how much water you give the thirst of desire, it's not sufficient. No matter how much wealth you give desire, it's not sufficient. No matter how much fame you give desire, it's not sufficient. No matter how many titles you give to desire, it's not sufficient. Desire cannot be satisfied. And until we understand, truly understand, that desire cannot be satisfied, we will continue to try and do things in order to quench our desire. And many people spend an entire lifetime trying to quench their desires. And then all of a sudden, they're in their 70s or 80s or 60s, and the desire hasn't let up. The desire hasn't ceded at all. It's still just as strong. It's just the physical body now isn't as strong as it was, and it can't chase those desires that in the way that it could when we were younger. There has to come a point where we understand what it is that we truly need. There has to come a point when we understand what we are chasing. Now, there's no need to chase Allah. Allah is everywhere. Since Allah is everywhere, wherever we are with him, and he is with us. But if we don't understand his nature, that he is everywhere and within everything, then we will continue to chase. We'll continue to go places to look for him and to try and find out where he is. If you go to India, or if you go to Sri Lanka, I haven't been to India, I've been to Sri Lanka, there are statues of Buddha everywhere, mostly in a four-legged sitting position. In India, you'll find wherever you go, holy men sitting in meditation, looking to find themselves in meditation, sitting still for days. Birds, when they go to sleep at night, put themselves in a tree, sit on a branch, and stay still for 8, 10, 12, 14 hours until the morning. Do they become knowledgeable of God because of this sitting still? Does man become knowledgeable of God because of his sitting still? Did God give us arms and legs and eyes and ears to close them and to hold them still and not move them? Or is there more for us to do? Our true meditation is to understand what our duty is in this world. Our true meditation is to understand what it is we have to do in order to fulfill our obligations in this world and fulfill our obligations to ourselves for the next world. Our obligations in this world are not complicated. We must understand the unity of man. This is a priority in your obligation. You must be able to see others as yourself. You must be able to understand others' needs as you understand your own. You must be able to understand others' hunger as you understand your own. You must be able to understand others' sorrow as you understand your own sorrow, and their happiness as you understand your own happiness. So when others are happy, you should be able to be happy with them. When others are sad, you should be able to be sad with them. This is true meditation. This is bringing into action our relationship with other people. Now, each of us is only interacting with a small number of people on a daily basis. Each of us only interacts with a few people. Can't we at least be empathetic with those people? Can't we be kind towards those people? Can't we be sympathetic towards those people? Can we give up animosity? Can we give up resentment? Can we give up jealousy? Can we learn to be kind in our nature as a regular attribute of who we are? Can we learn to do this? If we can learn to do this, then we will create the kingdom of heaven on earth for ourselves and for those who encounter us. If we can't do this, then we're on the wrong side of the equation. There are all of these opposites in the world. One of them, the most simple, is God and Satan. There are God's qualities and there are satanic qualities. And we have to choose which of those qualities we wish to adhere to, which of those qualities we wish to give our allegiance to, which of those qualities we wish to surrender to. Because one of the things that we have to do is we have to surrender. We have to give up ourselves for the truth. Now, some people have a misguided idea of what truth is. Some people believe that truth is conquering the world, that truth is making their own particular ideas the most important in creation, that making their own religion the most important, making their nationality the most important, making their race the most important, making their caste the most important. In other words, they are focused on the external attributes of man. They are focused on the manifest reality of man. They are focused on the elemental portion of man and man's elemental interactions in this world. As long as that is our focus, as long as that is what we're trying to accomplish, we have found ourselves in an inappropriate situation. There once was a guru. This is a long story that Bawa tells. There once was a guru who had a large number of disciples, and he taught them how to accomplish things that are considered by many to be miracles or a manipulation of form. And he had one disciple who especially was anxious to go out on his own. So he was constantly telling the guru, I've learned everything I have to learn. I'm ready to leave your tutelage. I'm ready to leave your instruction. I'm ready to go out and do what you've taught me. And the guru told him, no, you're not. You are just a novice and you really don't understand what it is to enter into the world yet and to do the kinds of things that I've told you to do. You don't know how to control them. But he insisted, and the guru kept telling him no. And this went on every day. The disciple would come to the guru and would fight with him about letting him go out on his own. Finally, the guru became tired of this constant haggling and interaction. So he said, go, do what you want. And so the disciple left. And from what he had been taught by the guru, he conjured a jinn, and he asked the jinn to do things for him. And the jinn said that I am here at your service. Tell me what you want. And this disciple's intention was to become honored in the world, was to become a king in the world, was to become important in the world. So he told the jinn, make me a palace and make this palace greater than any palace in the world. And the jinn went to work, and within a few days, he had a palace that was greater than any palace in the world. And then he came to the disciple and he said, well, I've done that, now give me something else to do. And he told him, make me all of the furnishings and all of the insides of the palace, make them into gold. Make everything into gold. Make the beds into gold. Make the tables into gold. Make the chairs into gold. Make everything into gold. And the jinn went ahead and he made everything into gold. And then he came back to the disciple, and he says, I've done that. Now you must give me something else to do. He said, I want to have the most beautiful woman in the world. And then within a little while, the most beautiful woman in the world was before him. And the jinn came to him again and says, give me something else to do. You have to give me things to do. If you don't give me things to do, I will kill you. And now the disciple was beginning to get fearful because he had gotten all of the worldly treasures that he could think of. And the jinn still wanted him to give him more work. So he said, in the jungle, there is a cobra with a special gem in its mouth. Bring me that gem. And as he did that, the disciple ran to the guru and fell at his feet and said to him, I wasn't ready. The jinn is now threatening to kill me unless I give him more work to do. I don't know what to do. I can't give him enough things to do. And the guru, of course, gave him a little bit of a lecture on not listening to him originally when he told him he wasn't ready. But then the jinn showed up and said, I need more work to do. And the guru, helping the disciple, pulled out the dog of desire from the disciple. And the dog had a curly tail. And he said to the jinn, keep the tail straight. And to keep the tail straight, he had to hold it. And every time he let go, it went back to this curly nature. So he pulled it again and went back to its curly nature. So finally, the jinn was kept busy, and the disciple lost his fear and came back to the guru and began to study again. Now, what is it that the disciple wanted? He wanted power in form. He wanted all the things in the world that most ordinary men want. He hadn't transcended into understanding their value. But when death threatened him, all of a sudden, he understood that they had no value. When death threatened him, by way of the jinn telling him if he didn't give him more work, he would kill him, he realized that the palace was valueless. He realized that the gold was valueless. He realized that the women were valueless, that the power was valueless, that the gems were valueless. Nothing had value when death entered into the equation. Nothing had value when his life could be lost. So he began to understand that value must be somewhere else. And this is what we have to understand. If we are at the end of time, and the end of time for each of us is at a different time. You know, everyone talks about the end of times. Well, the end of times is whenever your death is approaching. We don't need to know about the rest of the ends of times. The end of time has come for billions of people already. But when the end of time approaches, where are you? And what is your intention? When the end of time approaches, what is it that you truly need? What is it that you truly want? When the end of time approaches, what is it that you need to know? What is it that will still the fear that comes over you and came over the disciple? What is it that will bring you out of the illusion of the torpor that needs all of these things in the world? What is it that will bring contentment to your heart? What is it that will bring peace to your being? What is it that will satisfy you? And what is it that will just create more turmoil for you? And the answer is that all of the things that are material in nature, all of the things that are worldly in nature, will bring you more turmoil and more distress. And your attachment to these things will cause difficulty in your being. Imagine the difference between a king and a man on a small farm. Both of them have problems, but the problems of the king are often monumental. And for that reason, the king can't sleep at night. The king is constantly in turmoil as to maintaining his kingdom, maintaining his power, maintaining his wealth. But those who have very little don't have that same amount of turmoil. Of course, the opposite is also true. Very often, someone with very little has a miserly nature that holds on to that very little as if it were a fortune, and is just as attached to that very little as a king is attached to his entire kingdom. But when that time comes, when that end of days comes, Allah wants the same thing from everyone. Allah wants everything. And we have to be able to release everything. And until we are able to release everything, we haven't prepared ourselves for that final moment. We haven't prepared ourselves for that transition into the next phase of our existence. So we need to work in this phase of our existence to prepare ourselves for the next phase of our existence. And we can only do that when we begin to realize the true unity in existence. When we lose the attachment first to our individual I self. We've spent a lifetime creating this self. We spend a lifetime trying to make this self bigger. We spent a lifetime creating a giant within ourselves that is able to conquer whatever it is we think we need, that is able to supply for us whatever it is we think we need, and it has become independent in its strength, independent in its nature, believing that it can do anything. And as we approach the end of time, this giant that we've created within ourselves is our main enemy, because this giant won't back down. This giant can't surrender. So we have to practice becoming small. And what does it mean to become small? It means that we don't hold ourselves out to be greater than others. We don't hold ourselves out to be more important than others. We don't hold ourselves out to be separate than others. We see ourselves as part of the unity of existence. We don't separate ourselves out in groups or in factions or in castes or in religions. We don't see our religion as more special than other people's way of faith. We don't see our color as more important or more favorable than other people's colors. We don't see ourselves as different from other people because of the difference in physical appearance and the difference in religious inclinations, or the difference in our ethnicity or our language or our nationality. We see a unity among existence. And when we see ourselves as the same as others, we lose the arrogance of the I. And it's only when we lose the arrogance of the I that we can begin the process of surrendering our will to God's will, of surrendering our inclination to God's inclination, of surrendering our worldly knowledge to God's divine knowledge. And it is within this divine knowledge that we begin to understand truth. It is within this divine knowledge that we begin to understand what is reality, as opposed to what is this temporary manifestation called earth and the world. And we have to be able to separate out those differences. Wisdom is the tool that saves us. Wisdom with faith, certitude, and determination is what can conquer the torpor of the world, conquer the assault that the satanic forces in this world make on us, conquer the hypnotisms and the magnetisms of all of the powers that try to induce us into loving the world and giving our allegiance to the world. Wisdom is the tool that Allah gives us to fight all these things off. Wisdom gives you a perspective that shows you the truth. Wisdom gives you a perspective that can't be fooled by Satan. Wisdom gives you a perspective that won't be overwhelmed by torpor or overwhelmed by illusion or overwhelmed by the ocean that is looking to drown you in the torpor of the world. Wisdom is that tool for us. So in every situation that we go into, we have to consider what we're doing. We can't do things just automatically. We have to do things with thought. And this thought that we have to give things involves, for instance, is what we're doing within the realm of God's duties? Is what we're doing what Allah expects of us to do? Is what we're doing helpful towards humanity? Or are we focused mainly on ourselves? Are we kind towards others? Are we helpful towards others? Are we giving towards others? Have we understood that the only reality in existence are the qualities of God and their formless nature? Have we understood that the time beyond this existence is a time in formlessness? And as long as we hold on to form, and as long as we hold on to the world, we can't move in to that place that is formless. We can't move in to that place that is without the physical substance of the elemental earth, air, fire, water, and ether. When will that knowledge come to us? When will we accept that knowledge? When will we begin to understand the difference between what Satan is preaching to us and what God is preaching to us? God is preaching justice to us. God is preaching unity to us. God is preaching compassion and mercy to us. God is preaching an overwhelming sense of honesty and of equanimity and of enmity with all of creation. God is preaching ultimate peacefulness to us. Satan is preaching selfishness to us. Satan is preaching greed to us and trying to take us to a place where our only interest is ourselves. And can you imagine if God was only interested in one human on this earth? Where would that leave everybody else? Imagine if God limited himself to just some of his creation, but he doesn't. And this is the big lesson that we have to learn. In order to find truth in our being, we have to find our relationship with God, and we have to understand that at our highest aspect, we are godly. At our most truthful part of our being is our godly nature. And if we are to know ourselves and to know the truth of ourselves, we have to find that godly nature within ourselves. And God is not selfish. God is not angry. God does not have enemies. God embraces all of his creation. And this is what we have to learn how to do. We have to embrace all of creation. We cannot leave out people who we consider inferior. We cannot create scapegoats for our own difficulties. We have to move forward using wisdom as our shield and wisdom as our arrows of protection. And we have to be able to apply wisdom to every situation that we come into, which means we have to be a conscious being at all times. Torpor means that we fall asleep. Well, we have to be awake. We have to be awake and ready to confront the enemies of truth. And the enemies of truth surround us. Those who would do away with truth are constantly attacking us and everyone else in the world. Many of them do this in the name of religion. So we have to understand what truth is. We have to hold on to it. And we have to pray to God that wisdom dawns within us and we are able to see the difference between right and wrong and understand the straight path, the way of our Lord. And we have to ask over and over and over, take us on the straight path. Take us on the straight path. Show us the straight way. Show us the true way. And allow us to be among those who understand your nature. Open up our eyes, open up our heart, remove the veils from us so that we can come to know truth. May that occur for each and every one of us. Ameen, ameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.